It's time for the Bleed Lows Podcast with your hosts, Alonso and Juan, Alicia Del Valle, and the babyface gimmick in the sky, Roger.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bleed Lows podcast, and today we are set to begin a highly anticipated, 5-game series, National League Division Series, start of the postseason for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we have a special guest again today. We had Eric Harris on the day before. We had our live stream going over the Division Series. Now we're getting Jose Mota, broadcaster for the Dodgers. Jose, thank you for joining the show. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Good to be back on with you guys. So if Eric Carroll's made it, then I better be part of it too. So, he's a superstar. Yeah,
we're trying to make our rounds, get everybody on here, get their thoughts and opinions on this, this series because, vibes are different depending on who you ask because of the team that the Dodgers are facing. I know if you look on social media, I'm not sure if you're a guy that, looks too much into what fans are saying, but it's kind of a 50-50 split in terms of confidence of coming into this series. So, let's get started right off the bat with the Padres. We saw what they did to the Braves in the wild card series. We saw what they did the entire second half of the season. It was at one point the Padres were 50-50 at the century mark of the season, and they ended up pulling off the best record in the second half, beating the Dodgers by 1 game in the win column. So, what are your thoughts on the Padres? What they've done this entire second half to get them to this point?
I think Mike Schultz has done a brilliant job in managing, which was at times turned like a Ferrari that just other managers, namely Bob Melvin, couldn't handle. And overall, I think the communication level has been pretty high with the guys, the anticipation, also the openness. Talking to Manny Machado and guys like that in Profar, Xander Bogaerts, it seems like they're all on the same page right now just to become a very good baseball team, which they did. As you mentioned, at one point, they're barely scraping 500 before you know it. Is that, guys, the season's not over yet. Let's go out there and step up a little bit more. And Manny's a big part of that, obviously. But when you play well, you got to point also to the pitching. And their pitching is enviable. So many additions they made for the second half of the season that paid off nicely. And they have pretty much 4 guys in that rotation and 4 guys in that bullpen that can shut the door for you. So one thing goes with the other. They play very good baseball. Young players like Jackson Merrill responding quite nicely. They lose a guy like Hudson Kim, and you got a guy like Bogart, then Donovan Solano, who was let go by so many other teams. But I think when you have leadership, and I'm going to point right to Machado again and Profar, Cronenworth. It seems like they don't mind passing the baton and just saying, guys, if they don't pitch to me, there's somebody else going to get it done. You got a guy like Kyle Higashioka, who's become a hero in the postseason, who showed a lot of power in the regular season too. And I think overall they're well managed and they're putting a lot of confidence. And I welcome this intensity for the series. It'll be a lot of fun.
A thing that we heard from Dave Roberts prior to, today's game, we're filming this the day before the NLDS begins. They mentioned, maybe the Dodgers are playing with the chip on their shoulder. They're coming with a lot more higher preparation. They kind of want to avenge the 2022 season, quote for quote. Do you think the Dodgers have a chip on their shoulder? Have you seen higher intensity in terms of the workouts, the team bonding together, what they're doing to prepare for this series compared to, last year and the year before?
It's been different. For sure it's been different. And this started actually before clinching in the conversations of Dave Roberts with the players among themselves, just saying, hey, playing significant games in September, late September, is going to bring a different focus to us. Different challenge. The Dodgers had not been challenged like that, from September 15th to the end of September in a couple of years. So it brought on a team that was actually still desperate for starting pitching, but the focus was more on how do we get and manage through the pitching, but how do we keep the pace going on the offensive side? And at times, as ugly as it seems that the offense went sometimes, there's still the envy of Major League Baseball in terms of slugging, on base, runs per game, and now you have the Shohei Ohtani dimension for stolen bases, and all those things that add up to adding pressure to the guys on the opposing side. So bringing that and knowing that just recent success is going to keep your mind focused on why and how you did it, I think brings a different concept to what they bring into this series compared to the Padres in 22 and then the D-backs last year, because there's no doubt. I think the biggest thing for a player is to not want to be embarrassed. And the Dodgers last season, honestly, were embarrassed by what happened. And you have that taste in your mouth, and you don't want to remember that again. You want to live that again. Derek Jeter told me this back in 2002, 03, Angels, Yankees. Like, I don't want to get out of my apartment because I was so embarrassed that we lost. He goes, it wasn't the fact that who we lost to, it was the fact that we lost and we didn't play well. So the Dodgers need to play better and understand that there's no opponent is going to take a lot on you. Do you have the bullseye on you since the season started, since the offseason? But perhaps because these two teams are so familiar with each other and they know what to expect from the Padres players and the intensity, the rivalry, the cities, everything that it's about to elevate your game, they have it right in front of them, and the time is now to go out there and step up and do it.
Roger, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, so I was listening today to the conference when Profile was speaking, and one of the things that stood out to me, and he said it a couple of times, is that they're very confident. They're a very confident bunch now, especially now, beating the way this year they beat the Dodgers in the season series, right? Going back to 22, knocking them out. But prior to that, Dodgers had their way with the Padres, right? And to me, it seemed like all the Padres wanted to do was beat the Dodgers, whatever. And I think that was hurting them prior, right? Because they just wanted to beat the Dodgers so bad. And especially like when they're in Petco, that environment there is rough. And I know it gives the players a lot of confidence there in Petco. How do the Dodgers overcome that type of environment to kind of take this confidence away from them?
First of all, you welcome the confidence they bring because it elevates your confidence. You have to go out there and match it up and, in fact, surpass it. And in terms of Petco, I mean, no matter what and how they try to control it, it's going to be electric for the Dodger fans. It's going to be electric for the players themselves. Feed off of that. Know that you can go out there and elevate your game and take it to a different plateau and platform by the way you play. And I remember this from the days with the Angels and playing in Fenway. It was like, you want to take the Fenway crowd away, score first, and then score again. And before you know it, things totally change. So it's going to be up to them. And the Dodgers, obviously, the best team in baseball when they score first in winning games. And right behind them, the Padres. So, in that term, it's going to be like, okay, who's going to score first to keep the lead? But you got to welcome situations like this because, as you mentioned, 2 years ago, they were 15-4 against the Padres. And then they get beat by the Padres in 4 games in the DS. And then last year, they had their way against the D-backs. And before you know it, D-backs go out there and also get it done. And now that they dominated the D-backs during the season, we know what happened with the base running and how crazy they drove everybody. But at least they have their number with them. And the inexperience and the names and non-names, it didn't matter. Dodgers need to know that the Padres are going to be matching up so well, and they want to beat them so badly that even 2 years ago, I recall that the Padres are like, the division didn't matter. They went 15-4 against us, but October, we are primed to beat them, and they got it done. So you take all of that into consideration, your preparation, your talent, and the fact that this team has better pieces and is deeper than they were 2 years ago and last year, to know that on the offensive side, you can go out there and score more runs than them and win the series.
Real quick, I wanted to ask about the pitching matchups, right? We saw, the Padres probably, I would say, had one of the, or still do have one of the better pitching rotations in the playoffs. They've lost Musgrove, a huge loss, but the Dodgers rotation, I think it's still, you got Flaherty, right? You got Yoshinobu. What are your thoughts on Yoshinobu now going game 1? You have him flipping those guys.
Interesting. A couple of things come to mind. Number one is that if there's a game 5, you have Yoshinobu Yamamoto ready to go on regular rest. And number 2 is the fact that there's a couple scenarios. They talk about flexibility, but Yamamoto is a guy that can go out there and give you at least 5 or 6 innings. We're hoping at least 5 innings, right? Because the bullpen, believe it or not, many people don't know this, was one of the best bullpens in baseball again. Even with some pieces missing, now they're better lined up with that bullpen. But with Flaherty, who's had postseason experience, himself as a big leaguer, and with Baltimore and with St. Louis, it brings to mind, to me at least, if he's, because of the last 3 outings he was a little wild, velocity was down a little bit. If he's obviously needed an extra day to do this, right? But also, the other scenario here is after Buehler, there's Landon Knack, and Landon Knack last time was used with an opener. With all this in mind, is what if that one game, which we gained 4, turns into a game in which you need to go out there, match up more than just 1 or 2 arms out of that bullpen, and have a guy like Flaherty available for you to go on his bullpen day, give you at least an inning or 2. So I think that goes into the scenario too, knowing that you can use Yamamoto twice in a series, and now you can use also Flaherty in that scenario, maybe 2 times in a series if that's the case. Let me talk about bullpen days too, because when I say that, people are like, yeah, but a bullpen day is not the same. Well, let me tell you something. Bullpen days today are like pitching the 7th game of the World Series. Everything is being gauged. Your velocity, your spin, location, command, and all the feedback you need in terms of even like apex on your breaking ball. How much spin are you getting in that fastball on your breaking ball, and separation, all those things. So throwing a bullpen today is not like it was 5 or 10 years ago. It's way different. Now you're competing against yourself, okay? So if the Dodgers need to have a bullpen arm like a Flaherty come out and do that because of necessity, then that's the case. It's not just getting loose and getting through, 15, 20 pitches. That scenario, I'm just painting that as an option, right? But in the best case scenario is that they use Yamamoto to open up the series, and if there's a game 5, he's going to be even better off because he's going to be with regular rest to go out there and get it done. And with Flaherty, you know what? It's throwing strikes, it's competing. We know the intensity he brings is something the Dodgers staff was kind of missing a little bit or lacking. And certainly I think the 1-2 you got to feel pretty good about.
Yeah, Jose, you touch on a great point because I don't think it's unorthodox to see starters pitch in the bullpen. Before the Mets, made a miraculous comeback the night before, they had Freddie Peralta in for the Brewers, and he was lined up to pitch an inning that game and then potentially start game 2 of the NLCS. Obviously, it didn't work out. If the Dodgers plan to do that, hopefully they have they don't blow a 9th inning save. So, but kind of looking at the series as a whole, you look at the Vegas odds, the Dodgers are the favorites still. They've been the favorites for the World Series, every single year I feel like I look back on. But the vibes and kind of, everybody, whether it's The Athletic, ESPN, they kind of are overwhelmingly picking the Padres to win this series. I think The Athletic posted their poll today, and it was 80-20 San Diego over LA. Do you view the Dodgers as the underdog in this series, and do you think the players know that?
I don't see it as underdogs. People are basing their opinions based on what's written, maybe some tendencies, but you cannot gauge what happens in a clubhouse. You cannot gauge intensity or put a price, computer chip, or even a graphic on their hearts and drive, and also on the drive. People are driven by what they expect, and the Dodgers know they have a lot of truth. There's no doubt about it. Mookie Betts talked about this back in spring training. Hey, we know where the bullseye is. It's on us, but we need to go out there and perform. Well, guess what? Team with the best record in baseball got it done. With all the injuries, all the absentees, over 1,700 games missed because of injuries, they still got it done. Now, look at that now and say, hey, there's so many things that come into play considering that, hey, the Padres play great baseball, best team in baseball after the All-Star game. Of course, I guess they're going to be favoring for them. Look at the rotation. Much intact without Joe Musgrove, they still have a lot of depth. Bullpen. 4 guys that can close forward. The offense, 1 through 9. You got to really battle to go out there and get some outs. And they're a team that does not strike out. So that's fine that they base it on that, but I'm going to base it on the fact that there's more than that when it comes down to you being between the white lines or drives you and winning innings, then winning thirds of the game. And break it down and keep it simple, because one thing the Dodgers must know is, of course, we all talk about the disaster of last year and starting pitching and Kershaw and Bobby Miller and Lance Lynn. But also the offense didn't show up. Freddie knows it didn't show up. Mookie still has a bad taste in his mouth, and the rest of the guys. So understanding all those things, you go out there and apply it and use it as a drive to go. But it's not just going to be one guy. I mean, Teoscar's here. I mean, Will Smith is healthy. We got Gavin Lux. So there's a lot of things you got to apply out there to know that odds or not, this is a team that needs to be beaten on the field.
And Jose, another big key difference between this 2022 team and now is the guy we haven't even mentioned yet, which is surprising, and that's Shohei Ohtani. And this is his first postseason, in his 7-year career. Obviously, they asked him today, did he have any nerves or was he scared or anything? And just shot it right down. He said no. I'm expecting him, to be as the superstar he is, to live up to the moment. What are your thoughts on Ohtani? Because I know you've covered him his entire career when you were with the Angels. What are you expecting from Ohtani coming into, the NLDS?
I expect Shohei to go out there and have a great time and produce the way he always has produced. The Shohei Ohtani that showed up in September when people doubted him, like, can he really come through in the clutch? Well, when you have a stretch where you go like 11 for 12 minutes scoring position, that tells you that you're coming in through in the clutch because the team was not really won anything yet. He showed up, picked up the guys, but now this is a different monster. I saw Shohei Ohtani carry not just his name or his teammates' name in the World Baseball Classic, where I was there with Stephen Nelson broadcasting those games, and living in pretty much in the hotel and watching Shohei Ohtani interact with the fans, with his teammates, with the media, and pretty much just enjoy the moment. And I think he's going to feed off of that again here in the big leagues for the first time and know that he's not alone. He was carrying an entire country all the way to striking out Mike Trout. And the moment there was so much intensity. What I really hope is that he does not try to overdo it and allows the game to come to him again, slow it down, because this is the best lineup he's ever been a part of. And the guys behind him are just as hungry. So it's not just going to be up to Shohei. Hopefully, he'll have a good showing, be a big part of it. His dimensions and base running, on base, power, extra bases, and presence are going to be important. But also, he needs his teammates because it's going to take a full effort to go out and get it done. But one thing I know is he is going to be enjoying the moment because he has been craving this, and he's talking to me about winning since the day he signed with the Angels. And finally, we get to see him in the playoff, and hopefully he'll have a very nice showing too.
Roger?
Did any of this surprise you, Jose, of what Shohei is doing? I mean, he's been like just through the roof. I mean, is this surprising, or is this like, yeah, we know he can do this and even more?
It did not surprise me at all, because I even said this in a different podcast back in February. I said, I would not be surprised if he steals 50 or 60 bases, knowing that he is a very smart base runner and that he wants to get better stealing bases. I told the Japanese media, and pretty much I talk to the Japanese media every week, 40 home runs was a plateau for him. I know he's aiming for more. And here comes 50-50. So I am not surprised. I am not surprised at him feeding off of this environment. And that's something that I've stuck with since the day he signed. This whole environment and being around, Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts and Max Muncy and Miggy Rojas and all these players I've been there before, like Kike and Will Smith, it's going to make him better because he understands that as much as attention is paid, and rightfully so, to his individual accomplishments, the less he thought about that, the better he got, because he's feeding off the environment and trying to win and helping a team, which really is what really elevates players from becoming very good players to Hall of Fame players, is your environment, because you know that you're feeding off of it. The expectations are high every single night, every single day, every single series. The eyes are on you, but the guys that really understand and perform well in the postseason are the guys that allow themselves to just slow the game down and know that if it's not going to be you, it's going to be somebody else. But when it is your time, you do not go out there and miss that opportunity.
Last one I got to ask you. So all this talk about him pitching, coming back, do you see a situation where Shohei Ohtani would take the mound for the Dodgers in this postseason?
I truly hope not, because to me it makes no sense. I know it's sexy to talk about it. It's a great narrative, and it moves the needle a little bit more. But to me, there's no need to risk him going out there and not just pitching. He's going to be competing, and to go through a whole second operation and have it go south because of one outing, to me, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Hopefully the case is where he is not needed, number one, because then the point could come where, hey, you have Shohei, are you going to use him or not? I hope that the need does not arise because to me it makes no sense to go out there and sacrifice all the work he's done getting ready for 2025 because of one outing or one pitch, or because he's not going to hold back, knowing that if he's on the mound, he's not going to leave anything behind, knowing that he wants to win and wants to beat somebody up on the mound.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You know, it's as much as I want to see him pitch and how exciting that would be, not even just as a Dodgers fan, but just a baseball fan in general. Everyone has the WBC. You already mentioned how electric that was, him closing it out. It seems like so many people have that envisioned for the World Series, but I feel like I don't know how many times fans need to see somebody say no. Andrew Freeman said no. Brandon Gomes said no. Dave Roberts pretty much alluded to no. I mean, I know it could be up to Ohtani, but we'll see what happens. But Jose, hopefully we are having these types of conversations for the next 3-4 weeks, and not ending the season this time next Wednesday or Friday when the Game 5 is, and saying what went wrong with the 2024 Los Angeles Dodgers. But thanks for coming on, man. It's great to have these conversations, and let's hopefully the Dodgers pull out a series win.
Oh, hopefully they will, man. Thanks for having me on again. It's been a while, and I really believe that this club is well primed to do big things because, I mean, they're hungry, they're intense, they played meaningful games all the way until the last weekend of the season, and I know they have a lot to prove, especially manager Dave Roberts. Hopefully the guys will respond. There's challenges still ahead, but you can't look at the opponent, look at yourself and know that you're a very good team, and you're pretty deep, and certainly when you have something to prove, there's just a little ticker that says that's going to be our driving force right there. The Dodgers needed something like this to happen, and here we are talking about the best team in baseball records-wise with all the challenges, and once again facing another challenge. Should be a fun postseason, hopefully a very long one, guys.
Yep. Again, thanks for coming on, and we'll see what happens.
This episode has been brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here.